All right, let's talk about the future of cities. Today, we're diving deep into something pretty incredible, the Singapore Green Plan 2030. This isn't just some small project, it's a massive, whole-country blueprint to completely transform itself. So let's get into it.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, just picture this for a second. What if your city by 2030 was different? Imagine a place where a park is just a short stroll away, no matter where you live. Your commute? Quiet, clean. And the buildings around you? They're not just concrete boxes. They're actually helping to cool things down. That's the kind of future we're talking about here.
So what is this green plan really? Well, think of it less like a dry government document and more like a national movement. Seriously, it's a roadmap that pulls everyone in. We're talking businesses, local communities, you, me, everyone working together to build something better. Okay, so the whole plan is broken down into 5 key areas. We're going to look at how they're making the city and daily life greener, totally changing up the daily commute, powering everything sustainably, making the island itself more resilient, and finally building a whole new green economy out of it. Let's jump in.
All right, first up, a greener city, greener lives. This is all about bringing nature right to your doorstep and how that changes day-to-day life for, well, everyone.
And the main goal here, it's a big one. They want every single household to be just a 10-minute walk from a park. Think about that. This isn't about 1 or 2 giant central parks. It's about having green space woven into every single neighborhood. The impact on health and just general happiness, it's got to be huge.
So how do you do that? Well, you add 1,000 hectares of new green space. 1,000. To give you an idea of how much that is, it's like dropping more than 1,800 football fields worth of new parks and gardens into the city. It's a staggering amount of green. But you know, it's not just about building new parks. It's also about changing how people think and act. The plan is pushing to cut the waste each person sends to a landfill by 30%. And they're starting young, rolling out these eco-stewardship programs in all schools, aiming to make at least 20% of them carbon neutral. It's a cultural shift from the ground up.
Okay, so the city is greener, but how are people going to get around? That brings us to our next big piece of the puzzle, completely redefining the daily commute.
And the changes here are just massive. They're adding a ton of new rail lines, expanding the network by more than half. And for cyclists, the paths are going to nearly triple in length. And the big goal behind all this? To get to a point where 75%, 3 out of every 4, journeys during rush hour or on public transport. That's a huge shift away from private cars.
Now, what about cars? Well, the future is electric, and the timeline is super clear. By 2025, no more new diesel cars or taxis, period. By 2030, every single new car registered has to be a cleaner energy model. And to support all that, they're installing 60,000 EV charging points across the island. It's a complete rethink of what's on the road.
All right, so we've got greener spaces, cleaner transport, but where's all the power for this going to come from? This leads us to the third major pillar, totally resetting the energy grid. And a huge part of that starts with buildings.
Let's face it, buildings use a ton of energy. So the plan is going after them hard. The goal is to have 80% of all buildings by floor area be Green Mark certified by 2030. That's a huge push to make existing structures way more efficient.
And for the electricity itself, well, a huge piece of the puzzle is solar. The goal is to quadruple solar energy production by 2025. That's a 4x increase. In a super dense city, this means getting creative, plastering solar panels on just about every rooftop and available surface they can find.
And they're not stopping there. Looking ahead, the rules get even stricter. Any new building put up from 2030 has to be what they call a super low energy building. We're talking an 80% improvement in energy efficiency compared to buildings from back in 2005. This basically bakes sustainability into the city's future growth.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. For an island nation like Singapore, sustainability isn't just a nice to have, it's about survival. It's about resilience. And that's our next section, how they're securing the country's future, starting with its food supply.
This right here is a huge deal. It's called the 30 by 30 goal, and it's a core part of their strategy. The idea is simple but ambitious. Produce 30% of the country's nutritional needs right there, locally, by 2030. This is all about becoming less dependent on imports and making their food supply chain way more secure.
But wait, Singapore is tiny, right? How do you grow that much food? The answer is tech. Lots of it. Think high-tech vertical farms, stacking crops to the ceiling, perfectly controlled indoor environments, and super efficient fish farming. It's all about using innovation to get the most out of every square inch.
And this resilience plan goes beyond just food. It's also a literal defense against climate change. We're talking billions of dollars being poured into protecting the coastline from rising sea levels. And they're tackling urban heat too, with clever ideas like using special cool paints on buildings, and of course adding even more greenery.
So, you might be thinking this all sounds incredibly expensive. But here's the twist. They don't see it as a cost. They see it as a huge economic opportunity. And that brings us to our final pillar, forging a brand new green economy.
The strategy here is really to become an economic powerhouse in the green space. They're positioning themselves to be Asia's go-to center for green finance and carbon services. At the same time, they're revamping their industrial areas like Jurong Island to be sustainable hubs. And the result of all that? A whole new wave of green jobs for Singaporeans.
At the end of the day, it's about attracting the best of the best from around the world. By setting these incredibly high standards for sustainability, Singapore is basically sending up a huge flare, saying, hey, if you're serious about green tech and sustainable business, this is where you need to be. And this isn't just talk. The government is absolutely leading by example. The entire public sector is committing to peak its own emissions around 2025. That's ahead of the national schedule. It's a powerful way of showing that they're all in right from the top.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, it's pretty breathtaking. The Green Plan 2030 isn't just about the environment. It weaves everything together. The economy, how people live, national security. It's this massive collective project where everyone has a role to play.
And I guess that brings it all back to us, doesn't it? It's a huge national plan for sure, but it's ultimately built on the choices that millions of people make every single day. It kind of makes you think, right? How might our own daily choices, how we get around, what we buy, what we throw away, how can all those little things help build the sustainable cities we all want to live in tomorrow? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.